Brief, everybody. I'm your host, Paula Skaper, and this is my co-host, Susan Goebel, and we're here to chat all things strategic planning and operational optimization for 2026. So, Susan, you and I yesterday were having a chat about how the climate has really dramatically shifted, and most of us, really have built our businesses for the climate we've been in. Hey, I mean, for the last 40 years, really, we've had a fairly stable operating climate for our businesses, bumps along the way, but things have been pretty predictable and stable since NAFTA in the 80s. And things have changed dramatically for businesses on both sides of the border, right? Different changes, but changes on both sides of the border. So I'm curious if you're working with one of our viewers here and they've got the bandwidth to fix just one of the systems in their operating engine before January, right? We got 10 weeks left. If you can fix just one system, which system would you recommend people focus on first to get the highest ROI from their efforts?
Well, good morning, Paula. My favorite question. I know that I am an operations person, but it is anything that touches the money, honey. Because at the end of the day, that is the bucket of operations and your business that is going to be the thing you need to keep the closest eye on and you really need to pay attention to. And so that means two things. And we talked yesterday about revenue generation. Yeah. We talked about marketing. We talked a little bit about the sales component. And that's critical. We really need to know what's coming in the door. Operations also talks to the KPIs, which we didn't touch on at all, and maybe we will next week. But ultimately, our operational efficiency is the other side of that coin. Notwithstanding, of course, the conversation that eventually we're going to have about the customer journey and actually getting the money in the door and collecting those funds and all of that. But operational efficiency, making sure that for every dollar that we spend, we are spending it in the most efficient way possible is important. And you know what the one thing is that I find across the board is the first thing that everybody should take a look at in their business? It's their tech stack.
Okay.
I cannot tell you the number of times we have gone into companies and I am surprised by what's going on in their tech stack. Case in point, I had one client came in the door. This was a two-man financial services team. Okay. 2 people. So let me ask you this. If you had 2 people in your business, how many tools would you be using in your tech stack? 10, 20, 30?
It depends on the business. So I'm going to give the politician's answer. It depends on the business that you're in, the technology that you need, and I'd be more worried about seats and redundancy, I think.
Okay, well, it's only 2 people, so it shouldn't be a lot of seats. It probably isn't a number of 750.
No. It was definitely a 2-digit number. Let's just leave it there.
Correct. And so a 2-man team with 750 tools because one of them absolutely loved to go out and test out new things, but always forgot to cancel the subscription when they moved on.
Guilty.
Yes, I know. How many times does that happen? Or I like this one. I had a client. Now, this was a bigger team. This was 60 people in the team that found when we did the first evaluation that they had a number. You said seats, right? A lot of SaaS tools use seats as their model. And so they had a number of people who had already left the organization, but they were still leaving the seat there. They weren't canceling the seats. They weren't keeping that up to date. And so the first thing is absolutely to be operation efficient. Go and look at your tech stack. Go and look, pull that subscription number out of your software and see what you're actually paying for. Funny story. I actually had one guy say to me, this is one of the rare people, by the way, that did not have any efficiency in his tech stack. He said to me, well, you know what I do is once a year, I cancel my credit card and I get a new one because I've always forgotten every once in a while exactly what I wind up doing. And so this is my time. When they send you the message to go, hey, can you pay for us again? You go, I don't really need the service. That was what he did. That's a good
Wow.
way to do it. Now, that's a little extreme in my world.
But
I would,
effective. I'm sorry, but effective
but
because I
effective.
mean, we'll talk about this when we get to customer experience, but canceling tech tools that are on a subscription is not always
Correct.
easy. And yeah, so that's a conversation for another day. But wow.
Totally. And I won't even get to the challenge that I had trying to cancel my Microsoft when I went over to a different system. like,
Oh,
like, stop jigging my credit card. I've already tried to cancel multiple times. Anyway, the other thing that I find is really looking at rebuilding your workflows. And
mhm.
so those little pieces that we don't even realize, and every single one of us, I don't care what you are doing in an organization, every single one of us takes probably 20% of their day now to move data.
Mhm.
I use this over here. I download it. I have to take it to this tool. I have to upload it in order to get this tool to do something. Then I have to download this and move the data.
Right.
Oh my goodness gracious. So learning to be operationally efficient. And we're going to talk next week about automations and AI and some of the efficiencies you can get with that because it's very exciting. And the amount of time that we spend, if we can, automate 20-30% of our processes, all of those people in our organizations that are going, man, I'm so busy. Can we cut out some of that stuff that people don't really need to be doing anymore and make it so that it's a lot more streamlined and we're using better resources because, hey, people are people and they have special skill sets that automation tools don't have. So let's not spend the time wasting it.
So I have a question for you on that one. And this is something I've experienced in my own business. So it's a personal question. When I've gone through a period of operational optimization in the past, and I'll use like working with my bookkeeper as a great example, right? And we'll meet and we'll go, okay, are all of these systems that we have in place really necessary given, we've worked together for so long, we're in a rhythm, yada, yada, and we'll streamline the systems. And then I get to a point where I realize, hey, wait a minute. These systems have been streamlined to the point where I no longer have the information that I need in a timely fashion. And I no longer have confidence that the work is being done and being done accurately, not because it's not being done accurately, but because the systems that gave me information have been streamlined to the point of being useless. And I think with a lot of business owners like myself, we've had that experience. And so, the rebound, the boomerang effect of that is you start to put more control systems back in, and next thing you know, you're, a freaky micromanager again. And I've matured a lot. Early in my business, every invoice lived up here because I didn't trust my books. And literally, you could stop me in the middle of a party and say, hey, where is the last invoice? And I could tell you the invoice number, the date it was issued, the date it was due, and whether or not payment had been received. And if it was received, the date it was received. It all just lived here. My head was a very crowded place. I'm over that. It's a decade now, 2 decades maybe, but there's a balance, right? How do you find that balance and how do you protect yourself when you're doing this streamlining to not have that happen?
Well, and don't forget too, tools change and
Yeah.
grow, and systems and tech, they all change and grow. And so not once did I say set it and forget
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Right? And so going back in and questioning, do I still need this? Do I still do this the same way on a regular basis? And I'm going to put regular in air quotes because regular is different for different systems,
Mm-hmm.
processes, and people.
Yeah.
And stages of growth. If you're in a stage of growth where you're growing at 2 to 10% every year, that's going to require a different cadence than if you are growing at 100% a year. So, what you need to be doing and asking yourself all of these little questions comes back down to exactly what we're talking about and why we're going live here, Paula, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
the Q4 planning, it's the strategic advice, it's the hey, I'm doing this, I'm just doing it because,
Yeah.
and let's keep going. Can I tell another story?
You can.
Okay, thank you. So, one of my favorite stories is all about the rump roast. Have you ever heard about the rump roast? Probably haven't heard about the rump roast.
Only on the table for Sunday dinner.
And isn't it delicious? So as the story goes, as the joke goes, there was this family, and every Sunday they would get together and they would have a roast dinner. And the wife is making the dinner, brings it out, and the daughter says to the mom, "This is great, but I don't understand, Mom. Why do the ends come off the roast?" And it was, well, Mom always said that was the best way to get the flavor out of the roast. Not really being satisfied with the answer, the daughter goes to the now grandmother and says, "Grandma, Mom said you cut off the ends of the roast to make it taste better." And she said, "Oh, yeah, my mom always did it that way too. And so that, it always made it taste better." Again, still not being happy and satisfied with that answer, went to great grandma, and said, "Great grandma, everybody tells me that this is how to make a roast taste better and that's why this happens." And great grandma looks and says, "I had to cut off the ends of the roast because it fit in my pan." And so my point is, we don't do anything without questioning it. We have to always come together once a year and ask those questions. And so if we don't, then we do it because it's the way we've always done it. And then as things grow and change and modify, it's not going to be helpful. So think about the rump roast.
We assume there was a logical reason at the beginning, which there's always a logical reason, but then we fill in the blanks about what that reason must be.
Correct.
Absolutely makes sense. So, hey, that actually brings something else up, actually. I've heard you say a lot in our conversations that you have to separate the symptoms from the root cause. And that rump roast story was perfect because the root cause had nothing to do with flavor. Tell me more about that.
Well, I think that ultimately comes down to how you and I met, Paula. And we had been in our
business. Was I the symptom or the root cause?
Well, I'm going to tell the story and you can tell me what we did with it. And so we were having some lead flow challenges in our business. Yeah. And we thought we knew why. We thought we understood what to do about it. And we still weren't able to fix it internally. And so we worked together. We were referred into a network and through the process of what we call the CDAP. And so for those who are Canadian, the Canadian Digital Adoption Program did a great job way back when it was existing and put the two of us together. And we were able to go through a process where, we can streamline the brand. We had multiple brands at that point in time. And we can streamline what we're doing, the activities and the messaging, because we knew who we were talking to and things had changed, right? That was back, I want to say around the 2023 mark when AI and ChatGPT came out, and that was a big hit for us. And so that was where we started to then question what we were doing and why we were doing it, which we probably should have been doing all along, but we weren't because we were making money, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, if that channel disappears, then you're like, oh no, what do I do? You try different things, but it turned out we were addressing the symptoms in everything we were doing, not the underlying root cause problem. And when we discovered what the problem was, we knew we had to make some shifts and changes in our business. And so, Paula, that's how you and I got to know each other a few years ago. And I've always appreciated your perspective and how you came to that conversation.
And that actually ties back to what we talked about on Monday with risk in your business and identifying the risk. Because one of the big risks that you were facing at that point was that a sizable portion of your revenue was coming through a channel that was being affected. And so you were under diversified in terms of, which is, tough when you're a small business, right? It's hard enough to keep one iron burning in the fire, but 3 or 4 starts to get a bit like a game of hot potato. I'll quit with the weak analogies today. But it is really important to understand those root causes. And also, I think on that note, important to trust your instincts as well. So one of the things I remember is when we first met, you felt that AI was actually impacting your lead flow. And you had no evidence other than the drop in lead flow to make that connection or that correlation. But we went out to validate that instinct, right? So trust your instinct, but then validate it. And we were able to validate that, in fact, that was part of what was going on, was the way that your customer viewed the value of what you were offering had changed. Correct. And if memory serves, you dropped a couple of things as a result of that, realizing that there was no longer market and moved your focus and diversified in some different areas. And so, would you kind of look at that as part of year-end optimization, year-end operational planning now?
I totally would. We all have those gut feelings as business leaders, and sometimes we don't take them seriously enough. Hey, I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a problem here. I don't quite have the evidence, but I know I need to look into this a little bit more. I need to talk to
Yeah.
more people because there's something going on and I just can't identify it. And the thing that I love the most and what I used to do and why I used to do it as a solopreneur is coming together with another strategic individual who can
Mm-hmm.
ask me those good quality questions because they don't come to the table with my biases, with my blind spots. And I needed to have people ask me
Yeah.
questions that have a different lens that go, you know what, I might have seen this before. Let me ask and dig into these questions so we can get to the root
Yeah.
cause of the issue, not just the symptoms of the issue, and see if it's over here. Or maybe it's a totally other thing and we don't know about it yet. But I'm not going to know if I continue to look at things through my own glasses and my experience. There's a filter there. I need somebody else with experience and expertise to
Mhm.
ask me good quality questions.
And I'm gonna add just one tiny thing to that is I find it so important that that individual or group of individuals that I'm going to have no personal stake in my business.
Correct.
That's so critical because, and I see this happen a lot with entrepreneurs in my network, with sometimes with clients, where they have a big decision to make. And one of the ways that people try to de risk that decision is they go to a trusted advisor who's part of their inner circle. And without really stopping to think about what that person, that individual, might have to lose personally by the outcome of your decision. And we're human beings. We can't not consider our own best interest in any way, shape, or form when we have a vested stake, right? So, I mean, when I'm working with a client, they're one of a dozen clients. Frequently we'll have a conversation where it's, I think it's time that your team is ready. We start to step this back, and my contracts are all designed to step this back, right? So I'm here for a season, not a lifetime. And the reason behind that is that if I'm there for a lifetime, I begin to have a personal agenda around your decisions because my future is at risk. Whereas if I'm here for a season, it's a defined term. We have an end point, and that end point is based on not necessarily time, but on a level of result that we're going to get, right? Whether it's having somebody strong enough to step in and take the lead, being in a revenue place where you can hire someone full time, whatever that is. But it's so important that the person you're talking to doesn't have a vested interest because some of the worst business advice I have ever received, and it's a story for another day because we're at time, but I almost went bankrupt taking advice from a business advisor who had my best interest at heart, but had their own personal agenda that was clouding their judgment. And so they were dismissing things that I was acknowledging,
Mm-hmm.
like with you, and dismissing those things because it didn't align with their vision for what I should be doing, which ultimately very close to cost me my whole business. It didn't. Lessons learned, but it's really critical.
I want to double down on what you just said because it is so important to repeat that. The lesson is be careful who you ask advice of.
Yeah.
And I know we do the same thing. I knew there was a reason we're friends. We do the same thing in terms of, we're here, we're not the forever people. I want to be able to come in and provide the guidance, the advice, the operations expertise to get you from point A to point B. And then you should be able to get you elsewhere. At the end of the day, I know one of my early clients, after 3 years with them, 2.5 years, I started to say the conversation with them, like, we need to, like, our time is kind of done, and I'm not adding the value anymore. Oh no, please don't go, please don't go. Like, no, hang on. This is not, this is the thing. I know you want a strategic advisor. I know we're having a lot of fun, but it's time for me to step back. You need to be doing something else. So when we're having those conversations, who we're listening to is very important. And I love the question. do they have some sort of a stake in the answer they're giving you that is providing a bias to that answer, whether it's intended or not. It's not like people aren't necessarily coming to the table saying, yeah, I'm going to be, mean and evil and I'm going to, do it my way. They don't always do that, but they don't realize that they're giving you advice that is colored by that concept. So I love that. Thank you.
And I will say it's not just the people in your business. It could be your spouse who wants you home more. It could be your kids who want that Disney trip. There are all sorts of things, and it actually ties back to the core of what makes for great marketing, which is customer obsession. And it's a conversation for another day, but that's also one of the things that we overlook very much when we're working on our revenue engine is what are the personal goals of the people we're trying to sell to? Because at the end of the day, it's a person who signs the check and it's a person who signs the contract, not a corporation.
Yeah. I'm sorry we're at time again. Yeah. We're able to touch these things like this little itty bitty level, and then I know there's so many more stories and questions and things that we can learn from each other. But so we're not doing a conversation tomorrow and Friday. We're coming back on Monday, and then we'll be Monday to Thursday again next week.
Yes, and we have something super special coming up next Tuesday because we have a guest joining us to talk all things AI and technology engine. So I'm really looking forward to that, and hope you can join us for that. And with that, have a great weekend, everybody. A very productive Friday if you work on Fridays, and we will see you